and welcome to our second ever online virtual workshop thing. Today we are going to be setting our goals for 2024, and I am so excited. I always get excited at the kind of, start of a new year, end of the last, for just getting a little bit more intentional, getting a little bit of a refresh on what it is that we want to accomplish in the next period and all of that. I would love to know, are you more inclined to set yearly goals, or are you more inclined to set quarterly goals? Or I suppose any other kind of time frame is also okay. For me, I like to set quarterly goals just because I find a quarter is a little bit easier to focus on compared to a whole year. A lot can change in a year. I mean, technically speaking, a lot can change in a quarter as well, but it's typically less extreme. I don't know. I hope I'm not putting out like bad juju into the world with that. So let's see, we've got some quarterly, we've got hello me, hello you. Such a pleasure to see you guys. And so let's see, catch a portion of the live. I certainly hope you can, because we value you being here. But yeah, so today we are going to be setting our intentions, kind of thinking about what it is we actually want to achieve in either the next year or the next quarter, or, the next 2 weeks if that's what you prefer. So the process for this one, in very, very general terms, we've got two main sections that we're going to be doing. So the first one is reflection. I think that reflection is really important. I know that sometimes reflection gets a bad rap, and that's usually because people aren't doing it intentionally, so it feels like a waste of time. We don't like time wasting things. So our reflection, we are going to be very intentional with it so that it can help us. And then the second part is going to be that kind of brainstorming, thinking about different things in order to figure out what our goals might actually be. All right, so two main sections, each with their own individual smaller parts. If you are going to be goal setting with us, then my recommendation would be get yourself something to write with and get yourself something to write on. It is okay if it is digital. If you want to type things out because you can type faster than you can write, then that is all good. I completely understand that. But I'm going to be using this journal here. This is my goals journal for, 2024 and beyond. So I've already got my section set out for things that we're going to be doing. The first part, as we said, is reflection. We're going to be doing this here. I'm going to be doing this here. You can use your own paper. And then after that, we'll get into the things that we're considering about for actually figuring out what our goals are going to be and picking those out. Along with something to write with and something to write on, though, it's also a really good idea to have any of your journals that you've used in the previous period. Now, if that's a year for you, then it's getting out all of those journals that you've used across the year, in particular the ones that you record things like tasks, notes, and events. I'm not so much thinking your reading journal, but you can get that out too if you want. I ain't gonna stop you. It's just probably not the place in particular that you're really gonna need to look for this information that we're gonna be trying to find, right? So for me, that's mainly going to be things like my everyday journal and my yearly collections. If you just keep one journal, then it's nice and easy for you, but any that you've been using over the past period, mainly because we're going to have to look through those to find out some of the information for some of the questions that we're going to be asking ourselves, right? Let's see, scrolling through, all the pens at the ready, excellent, glad to hear it. I'm going to be using my typical just black writing pen because I'm trying to keep this journal fairly simple, trying to make it very approachable for myself, but I'm also going to need some color when we come to the end, and that's when we start to pick through the different ideas that we had for our goals, trying to find like similar themes, similar trends in what we've been writing about, and I'm going to be color coding those. So you might want to have some colored pens as well as we go through, but completely up to you. If you don't want to use color, that's fine too. Now, flipping on back over here. So as part of setting up this journal, we set up this kind of reference page for different reflection periods, so like cyclic reflection or like monthly, and many people noted that I did miss the C, but it's all good. This is supposed to be an imperfect journal, but in particular the quarterly reflection is the one that we're going to be doing today. So thinking about what is it that we actually worked on in the past quarter, what milestones did we have, what challenges did we face, all of those kind of things. And given the fact that this is a workshop, this is very much me telling you in theory what it is we're doing. Then we have some time to actually do the thing, and then we're going to review what we've done, okay? So it is very much like a do with me. There's going to be a lot of time for us to actually sit and think and answer questions. Hope you are eager and excited to get into it, just like I am. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to flip to a new page, or, if you're just using scrap paper, grabbing out a new page. We're going to start our reflection process. And the first thing that I like to do with my reflection starting is pretty nice, easy step, all right? We're going to lean into this gently, guide ourselves into it, and that's just restating our goals. Now, a lot of the time in the busyness of life, because, life gets busy, it happens, we don't necessarily so much forget about our goals, but we don't necessarily focus on them as much as we had have hoped when we initially wrote them down. So this is an opportunity to go back, find the goals that you wrote for yourself, in particular the wording that you used. Did you actually write them down, and where did you write them? Was that helpful? But I just have restated my goals here. So the goals that I had were revamping my office space, establishing better work routines, doing my goal setting course, and organizing a new planning system. Now, because I like to have all of my reflection in one place, I have written them on this page. You don't actually have to rewrite them if you don't want to. I mean, everything here is optional, but I do find that having them rewritten here means that the rest of the reflection is going to be a little bit easier, okay? So go find your goals. Find what you wrote down, in particular, like how you wrote them, rewrite them onto your reflection space, okay? As part of this, you might also want to consider, are these goals done? Like, have you actually accomplished them? Are they finished with? Or are they finished with in the sense that, like, you don't want to work on them anymore? That's okay too. It's all right to let go of goals that aren't serving you anymore. I'm going to be denoting here whether those goals are completed, still in progress, or just being let go of. But I'm going to give you guys some time to do the thing, all right? I've got all of my little timers out here. So the one that we're going to go with is this guy. Alrighty, so hopefully you have written out your goals and considered what progress you've made on them. So for the ones that I had, rather than it just being a straight like tick and cross type deal, I wrote down myself almost done for the office revamp. So it's close, we're getting there, just a couple last minute pieces. In progress for establishing better work routines and my new planning system, because my new planning system still needs to be trialed out and my better work routines is very much integrated with that. And then in terms of the goal setting course, it has been started, but because we're not quite 50% of the way through, I'm still considering that in like earlier stages, right? Sometimes it's not just as kind of clean cut as like a tick, yes, it's finished, and a cross, no, it's not. But you may have also decided that there are some of the goals that you set for yourself in the past quarter or year that they're not really for you anymore. They don't really hit the same, they don't really resonate, and it's alright to let go of those. In this part, you may not have done it, but it's also important to consider any of the things that you worked on that were goal-like or goal-related that weren't things that you specifically wrote down. For instance, my revamping of the work office space, that one very much is not one that I wrote down. I wasn't really planning on doing it until I got to about the start of November. I'm like, you know what, this needs to be done, and kind of took that up as part of my goal work over that last little bit of the year. All right, so now as we've got our goals down, it's time to start thinking about the good things, yeah? I like starting with positives where I can. It puts me in a good mood, all right? So what kind of milestones or accomplishments or wins did we have over the past quarter? These don't have to be huge, like big life-changing things. Little things can be wins, and you know, that whole idea of small steps, big progress, all right? We're really leaning into that with this one. So in terms of your milestones and wins, they can be related to your goals, often they are, but they don't necessarily have to be either, alright? So you might have had some kind of really good accomplishment or wins and stuff like that that happened outside of your goals. We should still honor those, we should still write those down, okay? So if you're like me, you might keep something like a monthly review, which is what I like to do, where I actually like to write out my wins and challenges and memories from each month. So when it comes to doing this quarterly reflection, it is made a little bit easier. I don't have to really rack my brain to try and think of all of the things that I've done over the past 3 months, or if you're doing like a yearly period, the past year can be a little bit tricky. So for this one, I am going to give you a little bit more time, but while we're going through and thinking about those wins and those milestones, I'd also like you to consider, how have you kind of given yourself a pat on the back? How have you rewarded yourself for your own progress, right? I know that this is something that I personally struggle with. A lot of the time I see the kind of the milestone or the accomplishment as kind of win enough, reward enough, and I feel like I probably should be doing a better job of giving myself a little bit more of a quote, reward for accomplishing things. We don't need to write that down, it's just something to consider, but as we go through, what are the milestones, what are the wins that you've had? They can be big or small. We're going to write those down on our paper next. I'm going to give you a little bit more time for this one though, because it can be kind of harder to think about. So, hopefully you had a good list of your milestones and accomplishments and stuff, and it's also kind of good to just consider, of the ones that you wrote down, how many of them were actually related to your goals? How many of them were related to possibly like other life areas? Also considering, are there any goals in particular that had like heaps of milestones and wins or heaps of accomplishments that you had versus the ones that maybe kind of got left by the wayside, you didn't really focus on them so much? This isn't as an opportunity to berate yourself. This is not us coming in and being like, oh yeah, I really should have done better with X, Y, Z, this is awful, where is me? No, we don't want that. That is not the purpose of reflection. It's just a moment to get a bit curious. Like, why was it that those ones in particular felt like accomplishments? Or why was it that those ones in particular got done, whereas other ones didn't? okay? We're not beating ourselves up. We're just approaching it with a lens of curiosity, all right? So if you have a win or a milestone that you had in the past quarter, I would love if you shared it, all right? All about celebrating progress. The celebration part is fun. And also, as said, I don't really celebrate my own progress so much, and you might feel the same. So let us celebrate for you, let us celebrate with you, and let us know what it is that you accomplished in the past quarter. Big or small, all is good. So the next stage that we've got after thinking about these kind of like positives is thinking about some of the challenges that we faced, all right? We like to think about these as challenges in the sense that, you've been, I don't know, what's the word, like subjected, quote, quote, or exposed to these things as a way to help you kind of like grow through what you go through, all right? We can sometimes consider these more like struggles, but I think that the connotation of struggle isn't necessarily what is as positive to bring into our lives, all right? Like going through a challenge, that's something we can overcome. Going through a struggle, it just feels like it's a more kind of stuck version of something. All right, so that's what we're going to be considering next, but having a look at some of the wins that you guys have. Got a new, better paying, more interesting job. Congratulations, Catherine. That is awesome. We love that. Let's see. Finished my reading goal for the year. Oh, yep. Round of applause for that. Snaps for you. I finished mine as well, which I was very impressed with. Alrighty. Oh, performed 3 shows, 2 in ballet, 1 in theatre. Oh, that is so cool. Congratulations. Let's see. Your first 10 out of 10 grade. Heck to the yes. We love 100%. Oh, that's awesome. Let's see. You wrote 90,000 words in 2 fantasy manuscripts. That is crazy good. Oh my gosh. I don't think I've ever written 90,000 words unless it was for lesson planning. That's just like way less fun. Let's see. Oh, excellent. Yes, we are finally on the meds to manage it. Nice. All right. It's one of those things, right? That like a lot of times, sometimes I guess milestones and achievements can come out of things that don't necessarily feel positive in the moment as well, which is also a good thing to kind of consider. Let's see. Oh, you surpassed it. You read 20 books so far this month. Wow, that's crazy. My highest reading month for this year was 5, and I was just like, yep, over the moon. Totally crushed it. Let's see. Oh gosh, you guys have heaps. Let's start back doing your bachelor's degree. Congratulations, Tony. That's awesome. Let's see. We've got back into sea swimming. Nice. Oh my gosh, I can't swim. So like anybody who can swim in general, I'm already like, congratulations, you're doing awesome. But then like swimming in the ocean like terrifies me. So that's really cool that you're like into that and getting back into it. That's nice. Let's see. Scrolling through. I know that you guys have heaps in here and you guys are dropping them in, and I love that, which means I can't grab all of them, but it's good to see that you guys do have a lot of very cool things that you've been up to. Let's see. Nice. Finally started therapy. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Let's see. Lost 5 kilos. Awesome work. Maybe I gained them. No. Ah, dear. I have lost weight this year. I have. It's only been like 3 kilos, but 3 kilos is better than none kilos as far as my weight is concerned. So snaps for that as well. Let's see. Yeah, I know, right? The ocean terrifies you and you've only lived in island nations. It is a choice and I live with it daily. So it's really good to hear that you guys have some really cool milestones and wins from the last quarter, and make sure that you give yourself the opportunity to kind of like relish in that and celebrate the things that you've done, because, you've done hard things, you can do hard things. By remembering the fact that we have accomplished this stuff kind of helps us fuel things going forward. It's like, no, I can do stuff. I have done stuff. Look at all of this stuff that I've done. I'm awesome, all right? Not so much in a whole high and mighty thing, but more so when we face challenges, we kind of remind ourselves that like, well, I've overcome challenges before. What means that I can't overcome this one too, all right? So in this next section, we are going to be looking at challenges, which often brings up maybe a little bit more of a kind of negative feelings about stuff. But feelings are valid, all of that kind of stuff. We do need to consider those as well, mainly so that then if the challenges present themselves again, we have the opportunity to maybe tackle them better, tackle them different, so that then they don't impede our progress quite so much. Okay, so when thinking about these challenges, we're not necessarily just thinking about things that were outside of our control or just things that were inside of our control. We want to kind of give ourselves the opportunity to consider both. Also, again, we're thinking about big things and small things. So a challenge faced could be something like, I didn't feel like I had the time to work on my goals. That's totally fine, totally a fine challenge, and I think one that we can all kind of relate to. It could also be that like I didn't know how to go about working on this goal, or it could be I didn't have enough of a plan going into this goal, thus I didn't make as much progress as I could because I didn't know how to work on it. But it could also be those external things. For instance, like the, big scary stuff like, I don't know, fire, famine, drought, all of that. But it doesn't have to be huge, all right? It doesn't have to be huge, doesn't have to be life-changing, but sometimes it is. Okay. In terms of the challenges one, oftentimes we do have a little bit of a negativity bias. Oftentimes thinking about the negative things or the things that were challenging is a little bit easier. So for this one, we're not going to have as much time to dwell on them, mainly because the main purpose of thinking about your challenges is more so thinking about how you responded to them, right? So thinking about our responses to challenges and whether they were actually effective is going to be more beneficial for us than just sitting and dwelling on anything that was kind of negative that happened. Okay, so we're writing down the challenges that we faced. If you find that within the 5 minutes you're already done at the 2-minute mark, start to think about how it is you approached those challenges. What kind of responses did you have to those? Okay, I'm going to give you some time. We're going to write some stuff down. Let's do it. There we go. So we hopefully don't have too long of a list of challenges. You know, we don't want to like wish challenges on people, but hopefully you have thoroughly considered your challenges, all right? So remember, some of these challenges, they weren't within your control, all right? There wasn't a lot that you could do about them. The only thing that we can really, have any control over is the way that we respond to them. And that is going to be the thing that we consider next. But having a look through some challenges, so for instance, mine was just like being so dang tired all the time, kind of that end of year fatigue, and then, just piling on more than I can chew and then trying to chew it, as is my typical way of doing things. So it could be inaccurate estimates of how long things actually take me. Let me know if you're similar, but I don't know, every single time I go to take on a project, I'm like, oh yeah, that'll just take a couple of hours, and then it's like 2 days later, I'm like, oh, excellent, good job, me. So thinking about the things that we have faced in terms of challenges, the things that we've overcome in terms of challenges, in particular, just the way that we responded to them, and what worked and what didn't. Okay. Now, in this next one, because we are very much specifically thinking about what it was we did, this is, again, not an opportunity to beat yourself up, because funnily enough, knocking yourself over the head about all of the things you didn't do or should have done or whatever else doesn't often really lead to a lot of behavioral change, doesn't really make us feel good about ourselves, and when we don't feel good about ourselves, we don't do things that are good for ourselves, all right? So we're not coming at this as a I should have, I couldn't have done that, I blah blah blah, none of that. We're just thinking about what actually happened, what did we do in response to those challenges, and was that effective, okay? We're giving ourselves an opportunity to really think about, like, for the things that were effective, how can we apply that to different areas of our life? And for the things that were not so effective, how could we maybe do that differently next time so that then we get a more positive outcome, okay? So, as an example, for my one, inaccurate estimates of how long things actually take me. One of the things that I have started doing in response to that is recording how long things actually take me, all right? By having that data there, it means that next time I come to do something that is similar, I have that kind of background data to say, actually, this took XYZ amount of time, okay? So if we go with video editing, because it is what I do, I have started recording how long different types of videos take me to edit, so that then when I try and schedule in my editing, I have a rough estimate of how long it actually takes. I don't kind of give myself this very unrealistic goal of being like, oh yeah, I can get that done in 30 minutes, when realistically every time I've done it previously, it's taken at least 4 hours, okay? So that's an example of a positive one. An example of maybe a not so positive one, if we think about like Vlogmas workload, all right? So making a video every day, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of effort. My approach so far has just been what I like to politely call nut up and shut up, which is effectively just like grin and bear it, like get through it, it's gonna be done soon. Not a great response to that. Maybe possibly it would be a better idea to reevaluate how I tackle that work in future. Maybe I need to plan ahead earlier. Maybe I need to let go of some perfectionism in that area or something like that, okay? So you're not necessarily going to have an approach to every single challenge, but it is good to consider the ones that you can bring to front of mind and whether they have actually been helpful, all right? For this one, because it is kind of a 2-part question, we're going to have a little bit of extra time, like we're going to have probably 10 minutes to think about this. But for each of the challenges you faced, we're thinking about how did I actually respond to this? Like, what did I do? Not necessarily how did it make me feel, but like what did I actually do to respond to this? And was that response as effective as it could be in terms of either like mitigating the effects or like solving the problem, quote, quote, okay? Again, not an opportunity to beat yourself up, not an opportunity to get down on yourself. We're just considering, is this something that I want to continue doing? Is it been like helpful? Am I going to bring it forward? Okay? So, having a look for some time, going to give ourselves 10 minutes to think about this. What responses did we have? How effective were they in responding to the challenges that we faced? Healthy me. Alrighty. So hopefully you have a good list of the things that you tried or like your approaches to your challenges. As said, for each of the different sections we're doing, if you find yourself finishing up early, then the little scroll bar does tell you what to move on to next. So I started moving on to the next section. But the approaches that I listed down, and one of these was very much inspired by the comments, so feel free to share what kind of approaches that you had, in particular the ones that you found that worked, alright? Not to say that the approaches that didn't work don't have their merits, more so it's just if we're looking for inspiration for ways that we can approach our challenges in a more kind of positive way, it's always good to hear about what people have found to work previously. So one in particular that I was inspired by, I think Julia mentioned it in the comments, was the idea of using your journal. And it's this thing that I often kind of overlook, that like my journaling time and breaking things down into tasks and writing my tasks list, that actually has a very big impact in me getting things done. It's also the thing that I usually get or rather give the chop to, I suppose, as soon as I get stressed. Does anybody else have this thing where, like, as soon as you get genuinely busy and you're genuinely feeling overworked, you're like, no, I don't have time for my planner, get out of my face, I just need to get work done. But if I spend the 10 minutes to actually make myself a list of the stuff that needs to get done, and I can kind of see all of those things together, often I approach my work with a lot more intention and things get done in a much more timely manner. Alrighty, so we did have a question about how do you respond to the questions and challenges when you've only just decided to start journaling? Great question. So as mentioned, I do have a lot of kind of like previous data to look back on with my monthly reviews, which really makes answering these questions a lot easier. But that's just because this is something that I know that I like to do. So it's something that I build into my regular journaling practice. If this is the first time you're doing it, if this is the first time that you're thinking about it, then Sketch a Sketch had a good idea of like, yep, I'm just sitting here and trying to rack my brain and think about it. And it might be the kind of thing that you want to build into your bullet journaling or planning or whatnot, so that you have these little snapshots to look back on to make this type of reflection a little bit easier, because it can be a little bit tricky to think about in the moment. Of course, this is a live stream, so we're kind of just moving through, like, you know, train through a tunnel kind of pace. If you need to pause and have a think about things for longer, especially if you're here on the replay, go for your life. If you're here on the live, you will get kind of out of sync with the live chat, but that's fine. This is your goal setting that we're talking about, right? You getting the opportunity to do a more thorough job of answering these questions is more important in my personal opinion. Alrighty, so hopefully you've got your approaches written down. Hopefully you've kind of considered which ones of these actually helped you. Not all of our responses help us, all right? So for instance, one of the ones that I wrote down is that when I get stressed, oftentimes I stress eat, in the sense of like not necessarily eating more, but more so I take the kind of like default easiest option for things, and that's usually takeout. Even if it's not necessarily something I enjoy any more than a home cooked meal, my brain just says like, oh, we need to go super easy mode, we're gonna go to McDonald's, which is fine. You know, takeout has its time and place. The only issue is that it often leaves me feeling satisfied in the moment, but then not so great about myself after the kind of effects of eating too much takeout kind of wears in, if that kind of makes sense. So maybe that's something that I need to consider in future. Like if this is gonna present itself again, if you know stressful times crop up again, are there some things that I could maybe have in the freezer that are really easy to pull out and just zap in the microwave? You know, it takes the same amount of time, it's the same kind of level of energy commitment to actually get it there and get it on a plate, but it might leave me feeling a little bit better about the choices that I've made. So something to think about in future. That is what we're giving ourselves the opportunity for here, considering are the things that we're doing actually still making us feel kind of good about ourselves, still keeping us kind of like on the train of moving towards where we want to go in general, all right? So the next thing that we're going to be thinking about is again one that's not necessarily so positive, and thus I need to say it, this is not an opportunity to get down on yourself, okay? This is not for that reason. We're approaching this with a lens of curiosity, but we're going to think about the things that over the past quarter or over the past year, whatever your period is, what have been consistently put off, all right? These don't necessarily have to be related to your goals, but I've been picking ones that are related to my goals. What are those things that time and time again, you write them down on your list and they don't get done? Again, not an opportunity to beat ourselves up, but we do want to consider why is it in particular that these ones aren't happening, okay? So for instance, the ones that I've written down are things like analyzing my time log, grouping my work tasks as part of my like better work routines, work master list type deal, making my rough schedules, doing my goal coursework, and then finishing the meal planning menu. So these are those things that I put on my actions list time and time again. So these are my actions list here, yeah? The list of things that I want to do to work on my goals. And they're the ones that at the end of each month, they would just get moved forward to the next month. So this is an opportunity to consider like, okay, those are the ones that weren't happening, but why? What is it about this task that meant that I put it off time and time again? We're not necessarily asking ourselves like, what is wrong with me that I didn't get it done? That's not a productive question, okay? What is it about the task itself that meant that I found it easier to neglect, or I was more likely to push it off, or it just wasn't getting done because because of the way the task is. So this could be things like the task was too big, right? It's not actually a task, it's actually a project. It could be something like the task is too vague. I don't know how to approach this. It could be I don't have enough information to get started, all right? There will be certain ones that we commonly fall into, and this is an opportunity to consider those, okay? We're not going to need quite as much time for this one probably, because it's really just writing down what are those tasks and thinking kind of broad brush strokes. What was it about these tasks in general that meant that we didn't do them? Alrighty, so we're going to have a 5-minute time interval for this one. What is it that you kept putting off, and why is it that those ones in particular got put off? Healthy. Music off. Oh my gosh. So hopefully your list of things that you've been putting off isn't too long. I know that sometimes my list is certainly longer than this little smaller list that I've got today, and hopefully you could kind of identify some of the reasons behind the ways or the reasons why they've been neglected. For me it was mainly because the task was so bloody boring. It was just like the one about grouping my work tasks in particular. I knew the payoff was going to be great. I knew it was going to be really useful once it was done, but actually doing the work was so tedious, right? So that could be one reason. This kind of gives me an indication that it's like, okay, well maybe I need to consider that task and think about the ways I could make it a little bit more fun, a little bit more enjoyable. Righty, we do have a question. So what if the only reason you're putting something off is that your brain keeps saying you have to start at the right time? I completely understand that feeling, and I'm sure that other people here can too. That idea of like, I'm going to start on Monday. Like Monday hits, that's when we're going to get going. Or, on the new hour, that's when I'm going to start working on the draft of that essay that I've been putting off or whatnot. Oftentimes, starting is the hardest part, all right? And I know that there is, not so much merit in the term of like, just do it. It doesn't really help me all that often. But oftentimes when I do just do something, when I do just get started on something, it can, it's easier to keep going with it, yeah? I think that that's one of those things that over time, as we start to get more just in general annoyed at ourselves, we start to let go. But it's always kind of unfortunate that we have to go through so much annoyance with ourselves to actually get to a point where we just do the thing. If anybody else has any suggestions for that, because that one is really tricky, then you let us know. But it could be the kind of thing of like, if you know that that's when you want to start, do not give yourself the opportunity to miss the start time, all right? Like set yourself the 10-minute reminder, set yourself the 5-minute reminder, set yourself the 2-minute reminder, set yourself the 30-second reminder. If you need to set all of them, then go for your life, just so that you do actually get kickoff happening at the time that you mean to. Making sure that you prepare in advance for actually being able to start when you intend to as well. Because oftentimes we tell ourselves like, I'm going to start XYZ on Monday or whatever. And then Monday rolls around and you're like, actually I don't have like half of the stuff that I need to actually do the thing. So preparing in advance for those in particular start times that we want can be quite useful. Alrighty, we've got a very big advocate for the Pomodoro method. The Pomodoro method is great. That idea of like, setting yourself that very small increment to get started with something and then allowing that to kind of just, be the little kickoff that you need to actually get going with things. Similar idea with how I approach exercise. Like my exercise goal is 2 minutes of exercise, which for some people is laughably small, but that's kind of the point. Because if I get that 2 minutes in, I'm like, well, I'm already here. I might as well keep going, I love this. Yes, I'm trying so hard not to think about how next year starts on a Monday. There's no special magic going on. It's just 1 day out of 7. Absolutely. And I mean, for some people, Sunday is their start. For some people, technically Thursday is their start, really depending on their work schedule or whatnot. I do really love the idea of leaning into those kind of like natural milestone moments, like the start of a new year, the start of a new month, that kind of thing. But I do also think that in a way we can make these for ourselves. It takes a little bit more effort, takes a little bit more planning, but it can still have a similar kind of payoff. Anywho, so our next question is one that might feel like a bit of a repeat, but I also feel like there's power in repetition, all right? If you're writing the similar kind of things down as you go through this, it really just comes to show like, this is important, please pay attention to me, okay? Because our next thing that we're going to be considering is any lessons that we've learned. Okay, this could be kind of related to the approaches and which ones worked or whatnot. It could be more general, broad things. But in particular, we're thinking about lessons that we learned in terms of our natural tendencies for how we want to work towards goals, or our common pain points or common struggles, what we commonly fall down with, quote, quote, in terms of being able to work on and make the most progress and all of that. But it could also be about positive things. It's like, I am much more inclined to, accomplish a habit if I do it in the morning, or I am much more likely to eat healthy on days where I work from home, or whatever else, okay? So these little things and little learnings that we can take away from our last quarter, and in particular the ones as related to our goals. As you start to do these lessons learned over time, you may find yourself writing the same thing every single time you come back to it. And honestly, that's okay as well. Like sometimes we have to learn a lesson multiple times before we actually do something about it. So for instance, if we go to my like stress eating one, this is something that I've known about myself for ages, right? This is not brand new information to me, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a lesson that I have to learn again, all right? I have to kind of remind myself of the fact that I do have this tendency and that it's something that I probably would like to address in future. These lessons learned can be very informative for actually setting your goals for next year, in respect to the ones that like are addressing a pain point or something like that. But the lessons learned in particular, we're trying to kind of keep it on theme with how we approach our goals, what works, what doesn't, the kind of stuff that we can take forward. This one we're going to go for 5 minutes for because it is kind of a bit of a repeat, so you probably already have some ideas in your brain hole, but as said, if you need to pause, if you need to spend a little bit longer on something, go for it, because doing a thorough job is more important than keeping to time, in my personal opinion. Alrighty? So, 5 minutes, starting now. right, so lessons learned. I would love to hear about any lessons that you learned about the way that you like to do your goal work, or, what doesn't work for you. For instance, one of mine was, I need to give myself time to plan before starting my work, especially when I'm busy, all right? It's especially in those busy periods that I just neglect my planner in general, and this is always when I need it the most. I need to remind myself that planning time is still important, all right? And if I do that planning time, I'm going to use the rest of my time more effectively, okay? So what was something that you learned from the last quarter about the ways that you like to approach your goals, about what works, what doesn't, that kind of a thing? So let's say you control your time better with songs and not timers. That's pretty cool. I have a tendency to, anytime I'm considering cost, I always consider like, how many plates of sushi is that? Like, it's kind of interesting how our brain gives ourselves these kind of natural comparison points and that kind of thing. Let's say I need to set and enforce boundaries with myself and others. I also need to do that too. Completely understandable. Let's say giving yourself grace allows you to feel good about trying again rather than shaming myself into giving up. Heck to the yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like we've been saying throughout this, if you take these as an opportunity to berate yourself, it just leads to not good feelings, bad juju, all right? We want to feel good about ourselves. Like, that's kind of a tendency to work towards in life. Happy is kind of the goal, right? So that's certainly something. Let's say I use YouTube videos for walking. Yeah, walk for 2 videos. I know, right? It's just easier to do that. And then you pick the video that's like, I don't know, 45 minutes long. You're like, why did I do this to myself? Maybe not. Let's say you already said yours, but one is the less time I have to get this done, the more pushback. Yep, that's fair. Want to spend as much of my time, having fun. Makes sense. Let's say staying organized means I spend more of my time on the things that really matter to me. My focus wandered when I got busy and I stopped keeping my bujo up to date. Completely fair. Alrighty, let's see. The low bar idea, getting started is the hardest part. Once I get started, keeping going is much easier. Yes. I think it's that thing. We make the start point that's like, this is kind of like energy or like cost. Yeah, this startup energy, startup cost to actually get started with something. Once you're going with it, then the friction has kind of been removed and you can kind of keep going. 100% I agree, Maya. Asking for help is not a weakness. And I think that a lot of us need to learn this. It's not necessarily like a character flaw if you can't do everything. Like, you are a human and you're allowed to be a human. And it's okay to ask for help when you need it. Very fair. Let's see. Nice. Take a doodle break from boring tasks and then get back to it. Nice. Yes, one of mine was about boring tasks. So it's like boring tasks get neglected, all right? So maybe one of my lessons is that I need to try and find a way to make these boring tasks more enjoyable and more fun. Let's see. Funnily enough, if I make things fun, I actually enjoy doing it. Work is allowed to be fun. 100% agree. And I think that the more that we can make our work fun, whether that be like professional work or goal work or whatever, the more likely it is to actually get accomplished, all right? The more enjoyment that we get from something, the more likely that we are going to do the thing. Very fair. Nice. Let's see. We've got routines are the way to make sure I actually get things done. 100%. Alrighty. I found that like routinizing, for instance, my 5-year journal that I've been keeping for this year, I have had much more success when I routinized when I actually did that, which has been very pleasing to see because that was kind of the entire point of starting it, was to keep it up to date. Let's see. So, once we've done our lessons learned, okay? Once you've gone through and you've considered the things that you learned about yourself and about the way you like to approach things, and again, it's all right if they're lessons that you've in theory already learned before. It is okay if you have to learn things multiple times. I'm a big believer in doing things twice. So a lot of these lessons are ones that aren't necessarily new to me, but they're things that I need to kind of remind myself of. So we can kind of think about it rather than lessons learned as maybe like happy little reminders. So once we've got those, the next thing that we want to consider is, well, okay, taking everything that we've talked about so far, what is it that we want to try or change or, look at doing possibly in the next quarter, okay? So knowing this stuff about ourselves, knowing that these are the things that got neglected, knowing that these are the things that felt good and we felt accomplished about, what is it that we want to do differently? going forward, all right? Doesn't need to be a lot of things. In fact, I find that changing too many things at once often leads to overwhelm, so maybe try and keep it to a smaller list. But what are the things in particular that you might want to try or change or do a little bit differently next quarter so that you can kind of encourage yourself to make more progress, or make more progress making easier, yeah? Make it more likely that things get done, okay? So for instance, for me, it was gamifying boring tasks, right? The boring tasks are the ones that often get neglected. If I turn it into a bit more fun, if I make it more enjoyable, then it's more likely to actually happen. Also continuing my time recording for my common tasks, and I've noted that I'll probably do that in Excel, so I have a set location to record them in. And then also making sure that I have some kind of like an easy default meal, and then I wrote that doesn't suck, all right? So in particular, it's not an easy default meal that I'm not going to enjoy eating, because then I'm not going to eat it, but something to kind of combat that stress eating that I often experience where I just default to take out. If I have something nice and easy in the house that is genuinely enjoyable, I'm going to be more likely to eat that than getting in the car and going and getting Macca's, right? So this one here is the last part of our reflection. After that, we're going to get into goal mind mapping. So we are going to have a little break after this one, but 5 minutes to consider what we're trying and changing, then a little break, and then we're going to get into actually considering next year. Alrighty, let's go get our timer on. Alright, so things that you're trying or changing, hopefully you've got those under your belt. As said, this is the end of the reflection portion, so this is a great opportunity to have a break, have a stretch, make sure you've got a drink, right, so that we can get into the next section. This is also an opportunity for me to handle any questions, so if you have a question for right now while we take our little break, I might grab my phone and set myself a timer so that we don't go completely over time. But, alright, little phone. What do we reckon? A little 10-minute break so we can just like get our bearings, make sure that we're still feeling human. Timers, start. There we go. Oh, I've already had a 10-minute timer. Well, that's good to know. There we go. So 10-minute timer has started. Drink some water. Make sure that like if you need to go to the bathroom, this is your time remaining, all right? I don't know how long people typically take in the bathroom. I don't typically time people on that. But a lot of this kind of like brain work, yeah, it can take a lot out of you. So if you need to take pause, go do some other things, go be a human, totally fine. I'm going to keep the train moving, but in 9.5 minutes. So let me know if you have any questions. I've seen that, what is it, Bonnie is new to journaling. Very exciting. It's really cool that we've got a bunch of people into the community recently who are kind of just starting with bullet journaling and stuff. Because I know that I find it very, very beneficial, and I hope that you do as well. I should probably try and figure out how to turn this so that it doesn't turn the screen off, so that we can still see the timer, because out of sight, out of mind, very much that. Let's see. I know how to use my own phone. She lied. But I'm very excited in particular about doing all of this work in one journal. I know this is going to last me a little while, so it'll be kind of nice to be able to look back on these notes, having them in a more permanent location compared to what I have previously done, which is just like in my brainstorming book, which is fine, but it's just a little bit nicer to have a dedicated space for it. Alrighty, let's see. Display and brightness. Auto lock? Never! So that we can actually see our timer. Nice. There we go. Timer's right there. Looking cute. Will this be recorded and available? Absolutely. As per all of our previous live streams, they are available on the channel if you just go to the live section on like the channel homepage or whatnot. All of them are in there. So this workshop is going to be in there after the fact, and we'll also have the one from, what was it, Q3/4's changeover, where we did a similar kind of workshop. That one's in there as well. So if you want to watch that to do your Q1 to 2 kind of changeover, then go for your life. Which channel? This channel, JashiiCorrin. I can show you on my end where it is. Let me just bring it up. So youtube.com, JashiiCorrin. That's me. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Present by sharing my screen. So, boink, over on the channel here, you can see that there we've got the live streams tab, so you just jump into there, and all of our previous live streams can be found in there. A lot of them with the little banner that says live, because sometimes I remember to put that on. So this is the one we've got at the moment, which, I mean, like, it's kind of, what, inception of the watching of this stream, but then we also have the one from last time, which is the live workshop here. Oh look, it's my face. So if you want to, you can go back and watch that one for your kind of like quarterly changeover rather than yearly changeover. Let's see. First time catching a live, love that. And you're doing your reading journal, but you love the body doubling? Absolutely. I've been very excited to see that we've got a lot of people in our community in the Discord group in particular who have been doing a lot of body doubling together. So just jumping into the voice chat kind of hangout and stuff, and just chilling out together and doing their journal work, which is awesome. It's been very nice to see. Let's see, should I track my bathroom time next year? Completely up to you. I don't think we actually need that data. Like, I could probably look up like average time spent in the bathroom, but I don't think I need to know. I'm really glad that you're loving the process of this. I think it's nice to be able to do some work together and also get to share as we go through, like, For instance, one of the approaches to challenges I wasn't going to write down until Julia put a comment in, and I'm like, you know what, actually I do that too. It's kind of nice to have a bit of a sounding board with regards to that. Where does JashiiCorrin come from? So Corinne is my middle name. My first name is Jess, but I used to go by Jessie, but Jashi was kind of a misspelling that stuck. So JashiiCorrin is what I've been using across all of the socials for many, many moons, since like 2007 or something. Let's see. Oh, you play the videos anytime you need to be productive? Yeah, I find the body doubling also works for me too. It's nice to just feel like somebody's doing work at the same time as you, even if it's not necessarily what you're working on. Let's see. Oh, you ordered your first journal? That is super exciting. Oh my gosh. I love looking back at my first journal and the kind of things that I put in there and the hand lettering that I thought was good at the time, and looking back at it, I'm like, oh, those are some proportions. But it is really nice to see, especially after you've been doing journaling for quite a while, how your style changes and what you start to be okay with and let go of. For instance, like my first Archer and Olive, I was so worried about messing up because it was like the first time I was using kind of thick paper, and I'm like, oh god, this is like too precious. I need to only put precious things in here. And now I've brought my kind of regular messy handwriting into this, and I'm just like, oh gosh, this feels very interesting. But it's been kind of nice to be able to see that progress in myself. Let's see. How do you learn to self-reflect so easily? It is very much a kind of practice thing. When I first started out with it, absolutely not easy. It also is kind of learning to let yourself be honest with yourself, I think. Oftentimes when we, write stuff down, especially if you're writing it down for the internet, you have a tendency to kind of want to filter, or, keep it surface level, keep it a little bit shallow, but oftentimes the most powerful self-reflection comes from digging deeper and being very vulnerable with yourself, and in this case, sometimes being vulnerable with other people too. But it is a practiced skill rather than one that you kind of walk out straight out the gate being able to do. Let's see. One of your goals was to be asleep before midnight. Wah, wah, wah. Well, I don't want to keep you up. Remember, it is there on the replay if you need to skedoodle and go take some sleeps. Yep, 100% all about that. We do love sleep time. Let's see. Scrolling down. Advice for first-time bullet journalers. Alrighty, so I know that the most common advice is to, take things easy and only pick the things that you want and need and stuff. And I'm like, that sounds so boring. We actually already have a video on the channel about my first-time advice, but my advice is to try all of the things, within reason, of course. Like, don't go and set yourself up 160 collections that you need to keep up with, but try them all with a lens of self-compassion. All right, if you're starting out, for a first-time bullet journaler, you are allowed to be a learner. All right, we're not 100% great at everything that we try on the first try. Okay, give yourself that opportunity to figure out what you do and don't like by trying all of the stuff, but go into that knowing that not all of them are gonna work out, and like, that's okay. Yeah. So for me, it was like, I set up this really awesome cleaning schedule layout, and it was like, okay, these are the things I'm doing weekly, these are the things I'm doing monthly, I'm going to check off all of the boxes and whatever. Loved the layout, absolutely did not use it beyond the third week, and every time I'd go back to that layout, it'd be this little kind of like tinge of guilt, like, oh, you spent that time and energy to set that up, like, you really should be using it, you really should have gone back and checked it in. Shoulds are not good. We don't like shoulds. Scrap that. It just gave me the opportunity to learn, right? Like getting curious type thing, right? It was okay that it did not work out because it taught me something about how I actually like to journal. So try all the things, but be nice about it. Be good to yourself. Let's see. Recently found you and Vogel decluttering videos. Nice. I'm glad that you find them enjoyable to watch because I found them enjoyable to do. Decluttering is like my favorite sport. I'm not very good at actual sports, but decluttering, yes, 100% on it. You want me to come and tidy up your house? Let's go. Tie your head back. We're getting down to business. And I know that my parents are moving next year, and they have kindly offered for me to come over and help them out, which I know is a big step for my mum because she knows how much I love decluttering. She's like, do not throw away my things. I'm like, I'm not going to throw them away. We're going to find a new space for them, a home that will love and appreciate them, so the items can get treated right. Let's see. Oh, of course, make sure that you're having your drinks. Tink. Yep, shoulds are not good. There we go. Put that into your quote section. I love that so much. It's this thing. It's just another way that we beat ourselves up. And that doesn't really lead to very good progress on anything most of the time. You know, I have never felt inclined to do something because I beat myself up about not having done the thing, you know? And I feel like a lot of you are probably familiar with that feeling. You know, oh, I should post more to Instagram, or like, oh, I really should be eating healthier, or oh, I really should be working out more. I'm like, yeah, cool. That doesn't really help. You know, let's think more so about like, you know, how can I make myself more likely to do the thing? Or what would make it more easy to do the thing? Or what would make me feel better about, you know, making the choice to do the thing, whatever else. There are better questions to ask ourselves rather than these blanket statements of like, I should have done the thing. Wah, wah, wah. Let's see. Nothing makes you feel more accomplished than taking a trunk full of stuff to Goodwill. Heck yes. Let's see. After planning since 2018, I am starting to feel pressured with the term goals. So next year I'm trying to rename them intentions. Ooh, that was loud. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do us a frighten. Yeah, I know that there are certain like phrases and terms that like we have to kind of tweak to fit our, like, the way our mind works effectively. So one for me, I suppose it's like me kind of like tricking myself and like pulling the wool over my eyes almost, is that I don't like the term exercise, because I have built it up in my head that exercise has to be like hard-hitting, sweat pouring off the body, you're a hot flippin' mess kind of a thing, like rah-rah fight the power gym bruh. So instead I call it movement. And it's like, I mean the same thing. When I say movement, I mean exercise, but it's a word that kind of like hits better, makes me feel more comfortable about it, and makes me more likely to do the thing, yeah? So similar idea. If goals are not the term that you like to use, if, you know, you've had negative experience with using that word, then finding a word that is gonna hit better for you is totally fine. 100% about it. Anywho, it's break time is over. Hopefully nobody's still in the bathroom, because we're going to keep the train moving. Alrighty. So, whoopah! Our next section. So exciting. We get to start thinking about next year. So all of the stuff that we've been doing previously, this reflection, was really about kind of like setting ourselves into this kind of like mindset of thinking about what is it in particular that we want to focus our attention on, what might need improving, like any of that kind of thing. I find that looking back is very important, so that then when we look forward, we can do so in a way that actually gets us to the places we want to go. Alrighty? So, this first section, I find that going into goal setting, oftentimes you come in with a lot of ideas about what you want already, okay? And often, if you kind of let these ideas just sit up in your head and swim around, it kind of turns into this little idea soup. You can't really see forest through the trees and whatever else. So we need to get those out of your head onto a page, or whatever it is you're using. If you're typing, that's fine too, just so that then we can start thinking about other stuff, okay? So as part of this, in terms of our like initial goal brainstorm, what is it that you think you might want to do next year, or next quarter, or whatever period you're using? What kind of things do you think would be really good goals? What kind of things have you been playing around with, or you're like, yeah, I really want to work on that, I really want to do that, I want to accomplish that, I want to try that, whatever else? Those are the things that are going on here. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can go about this. You could do something like a mind map, where you kind of start with the central idea of like, you know, hey, this is 2024, what do I want to do in terms of like home and family and relationships and social connections and work and like whatever else, however you want to break it down. Or you can just write yourself a list, okay? I personally prefer to do both, because sometimes something comes to me in the moment and I just feel like I need to write it down and I don't want to find how it's connected to other stuff. Those are the things that go on the simple list. But then there are also those ideas of like branching out from different categories. So it's like, okay, well, in terms of my home space, like, you know, I really want to make it so that my bedroom is a more kind of like peace-inducing, sleep-focused space rather than a cluttered mess with things all over the floor, or like whatever. You also keep misspelling goals as like jails, like gallows. Is that how they spell it? Gallows? You get the idea. But yeah, so two possible ways to do it. I personally prefer both, because I find it's just like nicer to be able to think about it in different ways. This is where we get messy, so that's why I recommended possibly doing this on scrap paper. I'm doing it in this journal because I'm giving myself the permission to be messy with this. And remember that by writing these down, you're not committing to them, all right? You haven't decided at at the end of it, like, this is actually what I'm working on. These are just ideas, okay? So give every idea its rightful place on the page. It's okay if it's not something we actually end up going with, but we're gonna write it down, give it its little moment in the sun in the journal, all right? So we're going to do 10 minutes for this one because I want us to be thorough. I want us to really think about that stuff, either in the mind map form or the list form, or if you're me, you can do both. All right, I got myself a little bit distracted by talking about Jess's clearing her throat ASMR. If you know which timestamps they were that they came up, you let me know. I'll go and cut them out because nobody wants to hear that. Ew. So I haven't written anything down for myself. I do have some ideas in my head, but just to kind of show you an example of what it might end up looking like. As said, I like the goal setting process to be a little bit messy. So my one from last year looked like this, okay? It didn't start with the color coding. That's something that comes in a little bit later. But branching out from the central idea of the goals that we're setting for the year, I decided to do mine with different life areas because I find it the easiest way to kind of think about it. So we've got simplicity was one of the things that I was thinking about. Home, Vogel, obviously, my partner. Fun, health, finances, friends, and then branching out from those and like what I kind of wanted for life. Along with that though, we also had the goal brainstorm of just the different things that kind of came up as we went through. And that's not to say that they weren't related to these in particular, but oftentimes the ones over here are more specific. All right, let's see. We've got a bit of a chat about turning it off and on again. Oh no, you had to refresh. Yeah, I've noticed that mine is a little bit out of sync now, and it's like 35-ish seconds out of sync. So hopefully you can still hear and see and all of the other stuff. So apologies if it's been a little bit temperamental. Let's see, so goal brainstorm in terms of just a list of things that we want to accomplish, and then also possibly a bit of a kind of like mind mapping experience. As said, these are my ones from this year, from the start of this year, whereas the ones that I will be putting in for 2024 are going to go in here. I was just doing some admin in the background to make sure that hopefully our stream is going well and we can keep the train moving. So if there's something that you're excited about, something that you jotted down on your brainstorm and you're like, I'm pretty sure that's going to be one of them, I would love to hear about it. What is it something that like you're thinking about working on for next year? You actually enjoyed the throat clearing. Oh no. I'm glad that you enjoyed it because I always try to kind of cut that out because I'm like, nobody really wants to hear that, really, do they? I assume it must have been at the end of a clip when we were going from a timer to the hands down view type thing. But if anybody does have a timestamp for it, you let me know because I don't know. I don't think I want to keep that in there. But let me know. What is it, something that you are hoping to work on next year, something that you're kind of excited about being a potential goal of yours? I think for me, one of the things that I'm very excited about is obviously our goal setting course. So effectively what we're doing here together, just done more in like kind of course format, and having like different cohorts go through that. I think it's going to be really exciting. What do we have? We have going back to college. Awesome. That is exciting. Oh my gosh. I hope it goes well for you. My brother is back at like university college at the moment, and he's been accepted into a teacher kind of program for next year, so I'm very excited for him. Let's see, read 100 books. Excellent. I'm aiming for 24 next year because I managed to hit it this year. I only had 12 on my list for this year, but I'm hoping for 24 next year. But 100 is a very like excellent goal for a lot of people. For me, too many. For you, hope you hit it. All the power to you. Let's see. Yes, for the goal setting course. I hope you're excited. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a really cool resource. Let's see. Getting a Boudreaux habit established. 100%. Love that. Let's see. Finishing A-levels and then hoping for the entrance into a uni you want. Nice. Fingers crossed for you because that's exciting too. Let's see. Qualifying for a transplant. Yes, 100%. Putting those kind of, what are they, like good vibes? Putting good vibes out for that. Wishes and all of that kind of thing. You can do the thing. Alrighty, paying down debts. Nice. Alright, I also would like my home loan to go down. Wah, wah, wah. Let's see. Weekend hikes with your dog. Oh, that's lovely. I would like to get outside more next year. I'm not very good about leaving the house because my job is at home now. So it would be nice to get that out there for myself as well, because that's something that I think that would be beneficial. Alrighty, let's see. You find that the majority of your goals are falling under one main category of self-care. Nah, that's all good, all right? Because part of the reason that we do this way, all right, part of the reason that we start with this brainstorm, get all of our thoughts out, and then we move on to other different sections is so that we can find those kind of trends or themes throughout the different sections that we're kind of filling in. Oftentimes, if something comes up repeatedly, it's because it's important, all right? So that it's good that you're already kind of noticing that stuff. Ooh, finishing your novel, that is exciting too. And finishing my master's degree and walking a half marathon, that is, I applaud you. How long is a half marathon? I mean, it's longer than I've probably walked all at once. Let's put it that way. Let's see. Creating functional routines, nice. Home and art business and self-care, I love that. I know routine building is going to be on my list as well, so that's really cool. Let's see. Hoping to change jobs, nice. All right, job changes is like kind of scary, eh? I think it's okay if our goals scare us a little bit. Oftentimes they talk about the idea that if your goals don't scare you, they're not big enough kind of a thing. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I think that you can have a goal that doesn't scare you if it's going to be enjoyable. That's totally fine with me, but changing jobs can be kind of scary, but I wish you the best with that one because that's exciting. Let's see. Scrolling through. Alrighty. Looking to get a graphic novel or book written. Awesome. Oh my gosh, that'd be really cool too. You guys have such varied and interesting goals, and I love that, all right? I think it's the nice part about sharing your goals with other people is just like, first of all, a little bit of accountability sometimes, especially if you're sharing it with somebody who you're going to be checking in with over a longer period of time. And also just getting to see like the varied life experiences of other people. Like we have people who like, they want to read more, they want to go and like, study things, they want to get published, they want to, do all of these varied things. And it's just like really cool to have like all of these different intentions for all of these different people. So love that. Thank you for sharing your things, team. I think that's really cool. So moving this guy to the side and thinking about our next idea. Now, as said, with all of those little scrolling down the bottom things, you might have gotten a little bit of a spoiler for it. And this next section is one that not everybody likes to do. Totally fine, all good. But something that I do often prefer to do is a level 10 life, okay? So the general idea with a level 10 life is that it comes from the book The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. I don't really follow The Miracle Morning, but I like the idea of having a kind of scale that I rate different categories of life in, okay? The idea with this one is just, it's giving us an indication of places in our life that might need a little more attention, okay? So for me, I go through and consider what are my different life areas. I've written them out in my journal already. So the ones that I have are physical health, mental health, personal development, home environment, finances, leisure and fun, work, Vogel, family connections, and social connections. And I consider all of those kind of like relationship and connections separately because I usually have different goals associated with each of them. So the thing with the life areas is that they are very much up to you, all right? They're specific to us as individuals, and that's why I don't like to prescribe which ones you might want to use. But what I would like to do in this kind of level 10 life section is consider each of those areas and my general satisfaction in them. Like, how satisfied am I in the area of physical health? How satisfied am I in the area of mental health? Okay, for myself. The idea here is that we're rating it out of 10, so 10 being everything is awesome. I don't think that there are any improvements that need to be made here. Like, what is it that they say, like happy as a bee on honeysuckle? I don't typically say that, but some people do. But it's effectively like this area doesn't really need my attention at all. It is fine, it's good, it's great, things are awesome. Whereas 1 is like everything is awful, extreme dissatisfaction, nothing is good about this area, and I'm really not feeling it. Now, when it comes to using a scale, of a 10-point scale in particular, I try not to do half scale points, only because if I did that, then it's a 20-point scale, and that's way too many. What I instead like to do, though, is consider each of these numbers as a kind of descriptor. Okay, so we're going to pull up a little resource here, and hopefully it won't be too hard for you guys to read, because I know a couple people mentioned it was a little bit blurry before, but we're going to pull it up and we're going to consider these together. So sharing the screen so you can see what I see. There we go. So for this one, like 1 means extremely dissatisfied, like this complete absence or severe dissatisfaction in that life area. It causes a lot of distress or pain or negative impact kind of a thing. whereas 10 is like peak satisfaction, everything is awesome, rah rah, fight the power, I'm feeling very good about it. So this is the scale that I'm going to be using for mine, just so that then I have something that's written down to come back to. Otherwise, oftentimes what I find is that each time I check in with this, because I try and do this on a quarterly basis, I will kind of change what a 6 means, or I'll kind of change what a 4 means, which means that my scale that I've used or my ratings over each time isn't necessarily comparable. I really want to be able to compare my scores as time moves on. So if we go and have a think about, where is my level 10 life from last time? I don't know if I actually put it in my journal last time or if I did it somewhere else. So we'll go back to the time prior to that. So my mid-year check-in, this is what my level 10 life looked like then. Okay, so level 10 life check-in then looked like this. We'll just try and hold it up so you can kind of see it a little bit better. So my physical health, for instance, was a 3 the time before this, but it went down to a 2. Mental health was a 4, but it went down to a 3. Okay, and I like to indicate which direction they've changed in over time. It's just a little bit easier to see how those things are tending. For instance, family and relationships that time went from a 4 up to a 7. So that was a distinct increase in awesomeness in that one. So something to consider as you do this over a longer period of time. You get to kind of track in those areas what things are actually doing in terms of either increasing or decreasing. So general steps for this one though, listing out our life areas. Your life areas are probably going to be different to mine, but these are the ones that I use. And then considering out of 10 based on that scale that we had, and I'll pop the scale up again so you can see it, what is it that yours are kind of sitting at in terms of rating. So we're not going to bring the timer up for this one because it's going to be a little bit hard to have the timer and the scale and everything else on screen at the same time. So we'll just leave that there. I'll give you guys about 3-ish minutes for this one. Again, this isn't something that everybody likes to do. I just find it very useful to kind of indicate areas that I might want to work on a little bit more, right? Alrighty, so hopefully you had an opportunity to look through those. All good if it's not really your vibe, it's just something that I like to do to consider my different life areas. And yes, it was just quiet because I didn't put any music on because I didn't want to, like, I don't know, test the fates or whatnot. But hopefully people are having an okay time seeing everything because, you know, it's a lot easier to do stuff if you can see stuff. So, in the case of that one, this resource is actually already available. This one is part of a 2024 goal setting document, I believe. Actually, it might be in the mid-year goal setting document, but that one's available in our resource library. It's like a free resource library. I don't believe I have a link on the stream already for it, but I will grab you a link to that one. But otherwise, you just go to Jashii.com/resources, and you can get into the resource library that way. But I'll make sure to put that link into the description once we've done here. So, in terms of rating your life areas, because I'm playing around with stuff in the back end, I haven't done mine, but you can see that once you've identified what your kind of rating is in all of these, it just gives you a little bit of an indication as to where might need your attention, okay? So given the fact that last time I did this, my physical health was at a 2 out of 10, that was probably an area that I would want to work on a little bit more, or an area that maybe I want to set myself some goals or intentions in to try and boost that score up a little bit, okay? So one tool that we can effectively use to figure out where we want to spend our time, energy, resources. Now, the next section that we're thinking about here is what is called values. And this is not just things like in terms of like core values, like big hard-hitting stuff, which honestly can take a lot of soul searching to figure out. For instance, my core values are authenticity. So like, you know, being yourself and being okay with others being themselves in your presence and that kind of thing. Also things like comfort. Comfort is one of my core values. Pretty much any decision that I make tends towards keeping myself in a comfortable position. And that also means things like avoiding exercise and avoiding, working out and stuff like that because I find it uncomfortable. So being comfortable can have its benefits, so making people feel comfortable in our community, but it can also have some negatives. So that can be both a thing that I want to lean into and something I want to watch out for. So in this section here, though, in thinking about our values, we're really thinking about what are the things or the feelings that we, kind of take pride in, have value for, and how can we possibly embrace those more in the new year. Again, all of the parts that we're doing here are really just as a way to try and figure out what our goals could be. This one with our brainstorm was all of our initial ideas. The questions that follow are more so just thinking a little bit more deeply about it, okay? So in terms of the things and feelings that you value, first of all, what are they? And in particular, are there any goals that you could set around them to bring more of that into your life next year? Okay? Now, as said, actually figuring out core values can take quite a while. We're going to probably keep it a little bit more surface level here, and do feel free to chuck them down in the chat as we go through, because oftentimes reading other people's values can help us figure out our own, so it can be very useful to read other people's. We're going to do this one for 5 minutes. The timer is going to go back on screen and we'll have a little roller over the bottom. But what are the things and feelings that you value? How can you embrace them more in the year ahead? right, so hopefully you've got a good list of things that you value. So remember, they don't need to be the big, hard-hitting things, but if they are, that's totally fine as well. So I wrote down the ones that I already kind of know for myself, being like comfort, authenticity, connection. I've seen that other people have been sharing theirs, which is great to see. So let's see. Value in your physical environment, like functioning and calming. Yeah, it's good to totally think about different like life areas and your values for those in particular if it makes it a little bit easier to consider. Love it. So self-compassion, lifelong learning, 100% yes. Being known as somebody who cares. That's a very good way to think about it too. Like, what kind of person do you want to be known as? Like, when people describe you to others, how do you want them to describe you? What kind of things does that say about your values, I suppose? So those are really good things to think about, like accepting yourself and loving yourself. Absolutely. I think that a lot of us could take benefits from a little bit more self-compassion in general, being a little bit kinder to ourselves, and oftentimes extending that same grace to other people, though usually we're better at doing it for others than we are for ourselves. So let's see. Fun, competitive, empathy, and consistency. Love it. All right. I think that fun is an excellent value to have. I think that one of my kind of core values is like humor, and it's something that I like to bring into a lot of different areas of my life. So it's nice to see those ones coming up as well. So as you think about those values for yourself, again, like maybe the 5 minutes wasn't quite enough, all goods, come back to it, pause the video, keep the train moving, whatnot. It's all okay. But thinking about, if these are the things I value, if these are the things that are important to me, like how can I bring more of that into my life in the next period? What kind of goals could I set myself as related to those? So for instance, one of mine being comfort, all right? So not only feeling comfortable in my living spaces and making my living spaces feel more comfy and inviting, but also feeling comfortable in myself. So like giving myself kind of like the self-love and self-compassion and grace that I need to feel more comfortable in my skin, that kind of thing, all right? So thinking those through, thinking about those things that we value, things and feelings, and what we can do as related to those. Now, the next section is stuff that gets you lit up, stuff that you are excited about, stuff that you are passionate about, stuff that, like, if you had the opportunity to do that 24/7, you would be doing it 24/7. So what are those things in particular in life that you just get really enthusiastic about, all right? Those are also things that we want to bring more of into our life. They could be big things, they could be small things. So for instance, one of my things that I get excited about is sharing ideas on the internet, right? That's why I have this channel. Maybe the things that you get excited about could be like time with loved ones, it could be travel, it could be like experiencing new things, trying new foods, like any of that stuff that just gets your like blood pumping. You're really into it, okay? Oftentimes the things that we're excited about, they kind of falls into two categories. There are ones that come to the front of our mind so quick, smart, that we're like, yes, absolutely, I love that, versus the ones where it's like, oh God, like do I have anything that I'm excited about? Is there anything that sparks joy in my life? All right, so this one is often the kind of thing that either can take you a really long time because you really have to soul search for it, or it can be just like quick fire, getting all the things on the page. All right. So as we go through, I would love people to share what they're excited about, because again, it's oftentimes when you get to see what other people have written that it's a little bit easier to write your own list. But what are those things that get you fired up, get you excited, you're passionate about, you want to bring more of this into your life? Again, it is okay if there are duplicates in this section compared to other sections, all right? It's all right if the things that you value are the same as the things that you're excited about, because that's kind of the point of this, all right? Things that come back up, they get repeated, those are the things that really matter. And that's why we just ask these kind of questions in different ways for ourselves. It gives ourselves the opportunity to notice those things that come to the surface more often. All right, so for this one, we're going to spend 5 minutes, just jot them down quick, smart. Remember, it's okay if it's messy. That's all right. Goal setting is a messy process. What are those things that you get excited about, get you fired up, that you want to bring more of into your life next year? All right, so hopefully you have a decent list of things that you're excited about. As said, it can be one of those things that either things really come to you quite easily or they can kind of be a bit of a struggle, a bit of a process. But it's been really nice to see the things that people have been sharing in the chat. Let's see, what do we have? Goals excite you? Yes, love that. And how not to self-sabotage them? Yep, completely feel you on that one. Let's see, self-improvement, creativity, reading, aligning your work and income with your purpose. It feels good to be aligned in that way, 100%. Let's see, you're excited by performing, singing, family, and desserts. 100%, I put baking down on my list and then eating baking as well. So I completely get it. Let's see, cooking for good health. It feels satisfying having made yourself something that you know is like, I don't like to really use the word nourishing because it sounds weird, but like in my mind, but nourishing to the body. It's like, this is what the body wants. This is what the body needs. Let's see. What else do we have down there? Let's see, reading, crocheting, learning, and practicing self-care instead of just thinking about it. Yeah, 100%. I find that a lot of the time I spend a lot of time thinking about stuff that I want to do, and it's like, well, if you spent all of that energy, mental energy, and actually kind of getting started on something, imagine how good that would feel. Alrighty, excited about the book club? Heck to the yes, I am so excited that you are excited about the book club. I am also excited about the book club. One of the things that's on my excited about list is community building. So having, you and all of the other people in our community together and just getting excited about similar stuff, and it's good feeling. Let's see, excited about your reading. Yeah, I saw that one come up a couple times for people, and I was like, you know what, I need to put something about that down as well. So I had experiencing good stories. That's something that I'm excited about. So it's good to hear that other people are too. Let's see, yours include reading, planning, organizing, helping people, hiking, even if we fell away with it. Yeah, your dog, oh, so cute. I have the problem with the word fiance. I'm bad at reading it. I keep on trying to read it as finance. It's not, it's fiance. But maybe they could be your finance as well. Let's see, raising dairy goats, making educational material, creating your website, and painting. These are all very good things to be excited and fired up about. Love it. Crafting, cooking, implementing projects. Nice. I think that, yeah, there's a lot of satisfaction that comes out of that. I am fired up about these kind of things too. And it's cool to hear that these are the things that get you guys excited. Okay, so in thinking about these things and thinking about the stuff that gets us worked up and excited, it's like, well, how can I bring more of that into my life next year? Because we want to live a life that feels fulfilling. We want to live a life that we're excited about. So like, how can we get intentional about bringing that stuff into our life more so that we can kind of embrace it further, right? So all of that good stuff. So now, as we've thought about stuff in general that kind of lights us up, that fires us up, what we also want to consider is like, what are those things that we would hope to have achieved before we're gone, right? Like those kind of out into the future type goals. They don't have to be a right now goal. They don't have to be a this quarter or this year or anything like that. But stuff that we want to keep on our radar as things that at some point in our lives we would like to accomplish that, right? So for instance, one of the things that I very much want to do before the end of my life is go and see the Northern Lights. I do not expect that to happen next year, but I want to make sure that I keep it in mind because eventually the time will be right and I will take myself to see the Northern Lights, okay? It's gonna happen. Probably not right now, but it's gonna happen, okay? Before we move on, question was, where do I get info about the book club? We have a recent video that's come out that introduces the book club. So if you jump over to the channel, JashiiCorrin, YouTube, then there is one video in there that talks more about that one. That would be the one to check out for our book club. So, what are the things that you want to achieve or you want to do by the end of your time with us in this plane, all right? I think that, again, they don't have to be huge things. Some of them will be. Some of the things that we want to achieve for our life are big, like far-reaching kind of things, but they can also be small stuff. Not all of these are going to be stuff that we do this year, and that's okay, right? We just want to kind of keep them in mind, especially if you can break it down into smaller bits and pieces that you might be able to do in preparation for that. So for instance, Vogel and I really want to go to Japan. Not going to happen next year, but we would really love to go to Japan. And I asked him, like, at what age would you have to get to where you were kind of sad that you hadn't made it to Japan yet? And originally he said 40. He's like, yeah, I'd really like to go before I'm 40. And I kind of pressed the idea. I'm like, okay, so if at 39 you hadn't gone to Japan, you'd be like, okay, I really want to go to Japan now. And then he had to think about it again, be like, actually, I think it's kind of closer to 35. Okay, so that kind of soft, I guess, deadline, I suppose, is slowly looming, all right? So we're getting closer to 35. So maybe this is something that we do want to be mindful of, keep it on our radar. So maybe we want to start saving to go to Japan next year. We're not necessarily going to actually go, but it's something to think about, okay? All of these ideas, all of these questions, they're just trying to get us to think about the stuff that we might want to work on, okay? So for your big bucket list, your big life goals or small life goals, but the ones that are like by the end of life, I want to have accomplished those. We're going to jot those down in a list. Again, we don't need to keep it to like, a huge list. We're just trying to bring some ideas to the front of our mind. So we're going to go another 5 minutes, things that you want to achieve or do before your time with us is over. right, so I only wrote myself down one, but if we scoot this guy to the side, we'll have a look at my one from last year so we can kind of see some examples. So last year I did this one as a mind map, just kind of branching out and thinking about the different things. So for instance, like be well traveled is something I would like for my end of year, come on, end of life. And some of the places that I would like to go or experience. And the really cool thing is that like one of these actually got done last year. Last year I had my first official trip to the USA, so that was kind of exciting to see that some of those big life things, slowly and slowly over time, we do chip away from them, and that's kind of cool. But some of you guys had very excellent things. Let's say we build a covered porch on your house so that you can sit on a porch swing during thunderstorms. Oh, that's such a vibe. I love that. That's so cool. Alrighty. Let's see, we have graduate with my business degree, top of my class. Nice. Oh, excellent. Alrighty, let's see, have the financial security to retire and enjoy retirement. Nice. This is something that I've been thinking about, like, you know, with the nature of my work kind of a thing. How am I preparing myself to retire at like, I don't know, respectable age kind of a thing, as opposed to working until I am literally not here anymore. Let's see. I'm glad that you've been watching a lot of the videos lately, and I'm glad that you stopped by for the live stream. It's a pleasure to have you here. So other things that people want to do before the end of their life. Let's see, we're going to go to a Broadway musical, go to Disney World or Land, help less fortunate kids experience performing in fine arts. That is excellent, very admirable. Let's see, complete my book or graphic novel and adapt it into an animated series. That is awesome. Travel the world, be a part of an artist's room in a convention. Nice. Get married, that should be on my list. I mean, technically that's already on my list from last year, I just need to transfer it. Live in a house, not an apartment, and more. Yeah, so again, like, these things aren't necessarily stuff that's going to happen in the next year, all right? You know, that's why they're the big life goals, right? A lot of them do take a lot of time and energy to actually get it to happen. But by keeping it in mind, we can start to think about the smaller things that we might be able to do to make progress on them in the kind of like short term. So over the long term, they can actually come to fruition, if we want to put it that way. Let's see. Built healthy habits to be more mobile and active, doing yoga in my golden years. Nice. And learning to drive. Very fair. I know that learning to drive is certainly on a couple of my friends' goals list for next year. Actually getting their licenses and stuff like that. So that's an admirable goal as well. So, oh, I love that. Build an eco-friendly house. Nice. So you guys have a lot of good things that you're looking forward to getting in and working on in the life as a whole, as opposed to just the next period. Keeping those in mind helps us though. And it also gives us another opportunity to find those connections, or what we call like threads or themes in amongst all of the stuff. Again, all of this color coding that we've done here, that is a later step. That's when we kind of get to the end of our brainstorming kind of part. But moving this guy to the side and bringing back our more official notebook. So once we've done the things that we want to achieve or do over the entire span of life, then we can start to think about some less fun stuff. All right. The first one is, what is bothering me? Okay. A lot of the time I find that good goals either come from passions and things that we get very excited about, which is why we were looking at this stuff first, or they come from addressing pain points or addressing areas of our life that aren't sitting right with us. We're a little bit bothered by them and we'd like to do something a little bit differently. Okay. So in this section, we're really thinking about what in your life currently is bothering you. What is causing you distress, discomfort? It doesn't have to be huge distress or discomfort either. It can be small distress and discomfort. For instance, one of my small distresses or small discomforts is the fact that our bedside tables are not fit for purpose. Like they're not good. I don't like them. So that is something that is bothering me, is something that I would like to address in the next year, but it's not like one of those like big, heavy, hard-hitting things. They can be big, hard, heavy-hitting things, but they don't have to be. Okay? So what bothers do you have currently, either big ones or small ones, and what could you do to address those? What kind of goals might you be able to set around those? Again, this is kind of like a two-barrel question, so we're going to give you a little bit longer, as we've been doing throughout this. If you finish that section early, move on to the next one, okay? The next one is about being uncomfortable and things that make you a little uncomfy, and what you might want to kind of like get outside of your comfort zone with. For instance, maybe it's like public speaking. What kind of things could you do or goals could you set related to that? But first things first, What is bothering you, big or small, and what kind of goals might you want to set around that to lessen the bother, mitigate the bother? All right, 10 minutes for this one, starting now. Alright, so hopefully you've got your list of things that are bothering you. Hopefully it's, not too long a list, but sometimes it is. Makes sense. It happens. Now, as said, it is very important to consider which one of these are actually within your control, right? Because there are some things that bother us and we can't really do very much about it. So if we step this one to the side, just to kind of show you what I did last year for them, because it might be a little bit helpful. So in writing my what's bothering me list, I just wrote myself what's wrong, wrote them all down, and then considered specifically is there something that I can do to either mitigate or handle or control this? One of them being I was bothered by how expensive things are. Completely understandable, because everything keeps going up in price. And specifically, I can't change how much things cost, but something that I can do is change how much I buy, for instance. So going through those things that are bothering you, the things that have been making you feel a bit of discomfort, discontentment, all of that kind of thing, and thinking can I actually do anything about this? And if so, what can I do? Do I want to set a goal around that area? So, for instance, some of mine were computer issues. I can do something about that. Maybe go get your computer fixed. It's just that we're in the middle of Vlogmas, so can't do it right now. I've seen some of you guys sharing yours through here, and it's nice to, commiserate together about some of the things that make us feel a bit of bother. The one in particular about cleaning versus tidying. Yes, there's I don't like cleaning. I'll tidy all day, but for some weird reason, actually cleaning is a task I truly hate. And in seeing you write that down, I wrote it on my list as well, because I was yeah, I feel that, in my soul. I completely understand. My health, not having the energy to do what I want to do, being overwhelmed with life, completely understand that as well. One of my big bothers is very much around my health, and again, we're not trying to use this as an opportunity to beat ourselves up, but it's are the choices that I've been making aligned with what I actually want from myself, and maybe my unwillingness to make the choices I need to, quote, it's not quite what I mean, but hopefully you kind of understand what I mean. That can be a source of bother as well. But anywho, so a similar vein, similar kind of question, slightly different focus, is the idea of what am I uncomfy with, okay? So this isn't necessarily the same as what's bothering you, but more so things that make you feel a little uncomfortable, they make you, they're kind of outside of your comfort zone, yeah? So as we mentioned before, one of them could be something like public speaking. Public speaking is a big one for a lot of people, but maybe that would be something that you might want to build up skills in for the new year. Not everything on your uncomfy list is going to turn into a goal. Some things that we, are uncomfy with, we're just going to stay uncomfy with. That's cool. It happens. But some of them could turn into a potential area for a goal setting opportunity. So for instance, maybe you are, if you're a creative, for instance, and you make creative work in something, maybe you're uncomfortable with promoting yourself because you feel like it feels inauthentic, or comes off as kind of tooting your own horn, or it just makes you feel in general uncomfy. So are there things in terms of goal setting areas that you could do with relation to that promotion of your work in a way that does feel more authentic, that does feel like something that you would be more comfortable with, that kind of thing. So in this one, because it's kind of similar and related to the bothering me, but just slightly different, we're only going to spend 5 minutes on this one, but we're really thinking about stuff that is outside of our comfort zone. It kind of puts us in that little kind of flight or fight response, oh God, I really don't want to be here. But which ones of those in particular could we possibly set some goals around to, give ourselves those opportunity for self-growth and stuff like that, okay? So 5 minutes. What is it that is outside of your comfort zone or makes you feel a little bit uncomfy? And then which ones of those might you want to set some goals in? Don't have to. This is just brainstorming. Alright, so hopefully you have your uncomfy list. I do find that my uncomfies versus my bothers are slightly different. Oftentimes my uncomfy list kind of, I don't know, gravitates towards me and my feelings more so than the bothering list. I don't know if that's quite the right way to explain it, but hopefully you can kind of see a difference in your list. Again though, it is okay if there is crossover because that's kind of the point of asking all of these questions of ourselves. So in terms of things that were on my uncomfy list, I had things like guilt-free free time. Oftentimes if I take time for myself, I start to think like, oh, here are all of the productive things that you could be doing. I need to remind myself that rest is productive too, and it is necessary. People need rest. We are not robots. Well, most of us. Shout out to any of my robo friends. But let's see. So setting prices on my work that reflect my/their worth is something I'm uncomfortable with. I'm uncomfortable with asking for help. I'm uncomfortable with voicing my needs, and I'm uncomfortable with vulnerable conversations a lot of the time. Wanting to be seen as somebody who can kind of like, do it all, go the distance, strong sense of self and character and all of that kind of thing. And it's okay to be vulnerable with people, and it's okay to struggle, and it's okay to find things challenging, and it's okay to let people that you find things challenging. Anywho, so hopefully you have a good list of things that you are uncomfy with, and in using those you can kind of start to think about maybe some ways that you might want to mitigate those. So for instance, for mine, like asking for help, are there different parts of my work that I could get help with so that I can do more and awesome things for you guys and just do it in a more streamlined, timely manner that doesn't see me ruining my sleep schedule. That kind of thing. So it was good to see some of the ones that you guys wrote in there too. And yeah, it's some of the bothers are more bothersome than others, to the extent where it's just like, that's not a bother, that's a problem. But we like to use the word bothering me, because then it encompasses all of the small things as well. Now, our next section, which is actually the last section of our goal brainstorming before we actually start getting into like setting our goals, is the keep, start, stop list. So in particular for this one, we're thinking about stuff that we want to keep doing, we want to start doing or stop doing in the next year, next period, next quarter, that we think would be beneficial to us in some way. And we don't necessarily need to write down how it would be beneficial, but it is good to consider that as you go through. These might be the kind of habits that you want to build, either related to your goals or separate from your goals, as just stuff that you want to bring more of into your life. So for instance, one of the things that I want to keep doing is, for instance, using my planner when times get busy. I do it a little bit. I would like to keep doing it. I'd like to do it more consistently. Some of the things that I would like to stop doing possibly would be that thing that we mentioned before about using takeout as a kind of way to go easy mode on my food intake in those busy periods. So the things in particular that you think you might want to keep doing, start doing, stop doing. And then once we've done that, once we've gotten through that one, then we can start to think about, well, what are my goals actually going to be for the next period, actually going to be for the next year. For this one, because there are 3 separate sections, we are going to do a 10-minute timer for this. But if you get to the end of that, if you've done your keep, start, stop list, and you're ready to start finding out your goals, the real thing you want to do is just look back through these pages that we've filled in. Hopefully yours are a little bit more full than mine. But then start thinking about, well, what is the same between all of them? What are the common ideas, common themes that kind of tie them together? Because realistically, those are probably the ones that you want to set your goals in. If they've come up heaps of times, it means that they are important and they probably deserve your attention. Okay? First thing, keep, start, stop. If you finish that before the timer runs out, then take a back look through all of these little pages that you filled in. See if you can find any common trends or themes. All right, so hopefully you've got your keep, start, stop lists. I often find that some of them are easier to fill in than others, so I've tried to keep myself fairly balanced in approaching them, and I also tend to not work through one after the other because I kind of just let my mind run wild and fill in where I can, when I can. So one of my stops in particular is saying I should statements. As I said before, this is not usually a kind statement to myself. I should have done this. I should be doing that. Blah, 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 blah. Like, no. Stop it with your guilt statements. We don't need that in our lives, right? Maybe turning like shoulds into coulds or something like that. Something to work on. And it was nice to see some of the ones that you guys put through as well. So it's like, yes, keep bullet journaling, keep allowing yourself a bad or two start, fair, right? Keep journaling, taking more stop, push everything down, bottle it up, hide it away. Yes, all right, let ourselves feeling our feelings. It's a good idea, right? I find myself doing exactly the same thing, so completely relate to that. Let's see, keep journaling, cold dunking, swimming, stop using takeaway to reward and comfort myself. And again, it's really, I love it when you guys share because it makes me think of things for myself, and I hope that you find the same, because when I saw that you wrote that, I had to write down, you know what, something that I need to start doing is rewarding myself. Oftentimes, I just let the progress be the reward itself, but I think I need some more tangible rewards for actually making progress on my goals. So rewarding my progress using tangible methods. So it's very nice to see what other people have to say. So yes, hopefully you guys have your lists there, and hopefully you filled in all of your sections, unlike some of us, Jessica, but that's okay, because I know that I'll go back and fill this in after the fact. But what we want to do now is we've got all of these ideas, so you've got your mind map, you've got your brainstorm, you've got your level 10 life, if that's something that you opt to do, your values, things you're excited about, things that you want to do or achieve in life in general, stuff that is bothering you, stuff that makes you uncomfy, and then the keep, start, stop. All of these are just opportunities to uncover your goals. What we're now going to do is actually go and uncover them. Now, considering we've just done this together, there's probably a good likelihood that you've already started to pick up on things that you've seen quite a few times. There's already some stuff in there that you're like, yeah, that came up in like pretty much every section, and it's probably something that I want to work on, okay? So we move this guy to the side, and I'll kind of show you what I mean by doing this. So if we come over here, what I like to do for this part is get colorful. All right, colorful is fun, and fun means more likely to actually get done. So I decided to give myself some different color codes to represent the different things that had come up a lot of times, so that I could go back through and highlight them, underline them, put them in boxes or whatever else, to say that all of these things are related to each other and they're things that I probably want to work on. So for me, I kind of loosely tied these two life areas. They don't have to be, it's just what I like to do. So work and career was all in blue, fun and leisure was all in pink, things related to connections was all in purple, and went back through all of the stuff that we'd written down, like the keep, start, stop. We've got the outside of my comfort zone, my values, level 10 life, and going through and just finding all of the stuff that was related to each other, okay? Because if it comes up multiple times, it's probably something important, all right? As you're going through these, you're probably going to uncover some things that came up repeatedly, not just in terms of like the themes, but like within the themes, yeah? So for instance, if we have a look at, what's one that makes sense? Maybe the orange one, which was mental health. So everything that I highlighted in orange was related to either taking care of myself or things that give me kind of like peace-inducing feelings, that kind of stuff. I could go through and start to pull out the ones that came up a lot as related to that area. Similar idea with work and career, similar idea with connections, and then as going through those, as kind of like looking through each thing, trying to find those common threads, you can start to write out what things you actually want to work on. Okay, and that's effectively what we're doing here. So, setting this guy to the side and bringing back our beautiful journal. So one of the things that probably has come up a couple times in mine would be that idea of routinizing my physical health tasks, so stuff that's related to physical health, things that are kind of like related to eating better in particular, like that's probably something that I really want to work on because it's come up in multiple areas. So setting myself a goal in that area is probably a good idea. The wider theme is physical health. The goal that I'm probably working on is more specifically related to food, because that's the one in particular that has come up in that area repeatedly. Does anybody have any questions about finding the themes? Because I know that if you haven't done this before, it can be a little bit hard to approach, but outside of just really looking through things, finding common ideas, that's realistically what we're looking at. As part of actually filling it in your journal, my recommendation, if you're going with the color route, is write down the ones that you already know have come up, assign them a color, and then go back through all of the stuff you've written down and start to color code them, okay? I think that for my color coding, I am going to go with dot markers because it's a little bit easier to control how it looks, and that is exactly what I did last time I did this. So this was, I think this was mid-year check-in. So we've got different colors to represent each of the different areas. You can see that I've listed all of those themes and areas here. Vocals in the background moving around. So, what kind of themes have you guys found have come up for yours? As mentioned, one of mine is probably like physical health, exercise type thing, but I'd love to see what kind of themes that you guys have identified. You can tie them to your life areas, but they do not have to be tied to the life areas. Do keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be tied to those specifically. I don't like goal setting systems so much that make you set goals in specific life areas. That doesn't really resonate with me. Oftentimes because there are certain life areas that, you know, they may be common between most people, but they're not necessarily areas we want to work on. So for instance, let's just say finances in particular, like financial health and financial literacy and everything like that. That's something that everybody has in their life in some way. I don't really want to set goals in that area though. And I don't want to prescribe the different areas that you should be setting goals in, because you know how I feel about should statements. I got you hooked on the dot markers. They are very helpful. So hopefully as I'm just running my mouth here, you are going through, reading through your stuff and trying to find those common ideas. And then the ones that show up the most, that's where we're setting our goals. And you want to think about what types of things have been showing up in those areas, what kind of goals would be most beneficial. All right. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes to work on that. If you have any questions as you go through, make sure that you chuck them into the chat, because I would love to sit here and help you out, because as said, I still need to go through and do my actual brainstorming before I start this stage, but hopefully you have enough stuff on your list that you can do it. Alrighty, 10 minutes for you. Awesome. Hopefully you've been able to find your themes. So remember, those ones that come up a lot, those are the areas that, all of these questions are kind of telling you, like, I want you to work on this. I want you to do things in this area next year. That being said, not all of them are going to happen in the next year. Remember, we were talking about like big life goals, all right? Not all of this is going to happen in the next year. So depending on what period of time you like to work on, like we talked about at the start, a lot of people like to work on yearly basis. I personally like to work on a quarterly. A lot of you guys say quarterly too. Of the things you identified, realistically, which ones are you going to be working on in the next quarter, okay? So when it comes to actually selecting your goals, once you've got your list of all of the things that you could possibly work on. So for instance, this is what I wrote for myself last year. I went through and I thought about, like, given the time that I have available in my quarter, 3 months, how much time do I actually have available? What else is going on? What do I actually want to work on? Okay, so the ones that I had identified for last year was strengthening our community with more opportunities for genuine connection, working on my 101 things list, because this is how I bring more fun into my life. I wanted to do my travel to the US. I wanted to host an in-person JCC meetup, JashiiCorrin community meetup, and then partake in my no-spend/low spend challenge and do regular live streams. All right, and given the fact that we have had a live stream pretty much every week for the entire year, I can certainly say that we did that one. And a bunch of those other ones got done as well, which was really good. That wasn't to say that there weren't other ones though, all right? So all of the ones that don't have a tick beside them, they were not ones that were worked on in that first quarter, but that does not necessarily mean that we just like write them off as never going to do, okay? Because later in the year, for instance, having regular relationship meetings with Vogel for home and life admin, that one happened in kind of closer to September, right? So I decided it is still something I'd like to do. I'm going to write it on my list of goals, but it's not something I'm going to work on specifically in the first quarter of the year, all right? So in going through your themes and having identified the stuff that realistically are things that you want to work on, our next stage is really to pick those goals, all right? I'm going to leave you with that though, because that one can take a little bit longer. It takes it a little bit longer to think about, like, of the available time I have, like how much time do I have to work on these things? Which ones realistically can I get done in that amount of time? But I do hope that all of this brainstorming stuff that we've done together today, all of the soul searching and question asking and all of that has been useful. I know that I find it really useful, and I hope that you do too. So those ideas of like asking ourselves, what's bothering me? What am I uncomfy about? What do I want to keep, start, stop doing? What am I excited about? What lights me up? What kind of things do I just think I want to do in general? And then finding those common ideas, picking out the ones that are realistic for the time that we are looking at, the time frame that you're focusing on, right? This last part of the stream is for any questions. So if you have any questions, I would love to answer them. If you are interested about goal setting and you want to hear more about it from me, then you can use the link that I just shoved through the live chat. That will take you to email signups. So once my course is actually up and available for anybody to join, then I will hit you up and say, hey, come back to me. I would love to have you as part of my course. But in the meantime, if you guys have any last minute questions, please do let me know. This has been really good. I really enjoyed this. I hope you found it really useful too. I love goal setting, if it wasn't already completely obvious, and I love doing reflection, and I love getting to like soundboard off other people and hear what you guys have to say about your goals and get excited for you about the things that you're hoping to accomplish and achieve in the next bracket of time. Yes, if you have a question for me, please do tag me. It's a little easier to see, but I've got hawk eyes on the chat right now, so I will pick up on your questions if you have any. I'm so glad that you found it helpful. Thank you, Sarah. I mean, of course, if you found the video helpful, do give it a thumbs up. It tells me like, hey, Jess, do more of this stuff because we liked it. But yeah, I know that doing this can be quite a labor-intensive process, takes a lot of energy to think through all of these things, especially if you're giving yourself that opportunity to be very honest with yourself, be kind of vulnerable with your feelings. It can be a bit of an energy suck, but I do think that, if this thing is done with intention, if you kind of go into it knowing, like, I want to work on this stuff next year and I want to ask myself these questions, it can be very, very beneficial. Alrighty. So, question, as needs pop up change during the year, can we add goals by repeating this process? Absolutely. I like to do effectively like a version of this process every quarter, all right? Because as said, I like to do quarterly goal setting. So this is the kind of thing that I think about on a semi-quarterly basis. In particular, the reflection stage, this one that we did together, not you, get out, this one that we did together, this is my quarterly reflection. I do this at the end of every quarter. I don't necessarily go as ham on the like brainstorming, mind mapping, that kind of a thing, but I do give myself an opportunity to do a smaller version of this each quarter, whereas the stuff we've done here today is very much like the kind of annual thing. Let's see. Do you have any suggestions for how to organize your goals into a bullet journal spread? Now, it depends on how you like to see your goals. I know that I personally like to have them on an actions list for each month. So having a dedicated spread in my journal, or rather just like a page or a layout, where I would list all of the steps that I wanted to take that month as related to my goals. But it can also be very useful for people to have these a little more front and center and to put them onto their weeklies. So you could have a section on your weekly spread where you specify these are the things in particular that I want to do this week for my goals. People also bring their goal setting stuff into their habit trackers. So if you have either a monthly habit tracker or a weekly habit tracker or whatnot, bringing those small repeated tasks that you want to do into those can be a really nice way to keep them front and center, make sure that they actually happen. Otherwise, for goal setting layouts, when it comes to actually like planning the goal, I often like to do that in my journal too. So for instance, this is kind of an example that we had from earlier this year. So when it goes into like planning the goal out, thinking about like, why do I want to accomplish the goal? What's the ideal outcome for the goal? What kind of like metrics of success do I have for the goal? So I know how I'm making progress. These are the action steps that I need to take. Do I need any resources? So this is a layout that I've used quite consistently for setting my goals in my journal, and I'm going to be setting some of those up in my new goal setting journal that we've looked at together today. Excellent. Let's see, another question. It's been very helpful, especially with the live chat. I'm so glad to hear it. I'm really glad that people got into the chat and they were like, you know, spitballing ideas and telling us what their kind of thoughts and feelings were about different stuff, because I know I find it super helpful, and I think that other people will have too, so that's excellent. Let's see, the bits I got to listen to. Yay! I'm glad that you decided on your goal for 2024. That's very exciting. You have like 10 pages of info. Yeah, it can be a very lots of writing process. Make sure that if you are someone who has written, like not just you, Brenda, like anybody, yeah, make sure that if you've written this on paper that's spare or not in your journal, you put it somewhere safe, or at least transfer the very important stuff into something a little more permanent that you can come back to, because you've done all of this work. We don't want it to go to waste. We want this to have like informed your goal setting, especially, you know, those lessons learned and stuff that we talked about at the start with the, where are you, my chicky boys? The things about like, you know, things that you were neglecting, why were they neglected, things that you learnt from this process, the approaches that you took and which ones were beneficial. Having that in plain, like black and white or whatever pen color you were writing in can be very beneficial for your future goal work. We want to make sure that you give yourself the opportunity to take action from the things that you learned. All right, so that's really good that you have so much information there. Thanks for the awesome live. You are most welcome. It was a pleasure to have you here. Let's see. Excellent. I'm glad that you like the goal setting work-alongs, because yeah, I enjoy them. You had to visit IKEA. I mean, I wish we had IKEA here. That's exciting. But yeah, we'll catch you on the replay. That's the nice part about this. It's available for replay for anybody who missed out on any section in particular, or if you want to redo this process come the end of the quarter, or maybe if you get halfway through January and you're like, actually, this didn't really work out, I think I need to revisit it, come back to the video. It's all good. All right, let's see. Very new to goal planning. Love your idea of doing an action plan monthly, but no idea of how to go about it. So I will grab you a journal. I'll show you what I mean. So, this guy here. So my previous action plans have been a little bit more structured than my new ones. My new ones are kind of more just like a list of stuff to do. But previously, the types of action plans that I've found very useful, if we go to one that isn't on brown, so it's a little easier to see, that would be here. So I kind of split my actions list into the one-off or monthly tasks, so things that I need to do once during the month or in general, then the things that I need to do on a weekly basis, so once per week that stuff needs to get done, and then the daily actions I'll usually track on something like a habit tracker. Yeah, so for instance, this goal in particular was related to my no spend and like, you know, trying to spend less. So my daily action was to fill in the tracker that I had dedicated to that across the year. So I specified whether I had or hadn't done it on my habit tracker. I didn't have a lot of habits this month, but hopefully you can kind of see the structure. If we go to a future one, like in May, for instance. So my May actions list has a similar kind of structure, but on this one I actually tracked the daily actions along the bottom. I have a lot of iterations in my journal. I change things up quite often as I find what does or doesn't work for me in any given moment. So, but this is the kind of structure roughly for my actions list that I typically like to use. One often monthly, weekly, daily. Yeah. Let's see. Do you think people new to goals should start with just a few to focus on so they don't get overwhelmed? I think that it's possibly a good idea. It's this kind of balancing act I find that with goal setting, if I have too few goals, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, but I'm using myself as an example because I can speak to my own experience. But if I have too few goals, I start to get bored. And if I get bored, I don't take action, nothing really happens. That being said, if I have too many, then they don't get the attention that they deserve. So there's going to be a happy medium for everyone, and your number is going to be different to other people's. If you're someone like me and you're trying to only work on one goal, you're probably not going to make very much progress with it because you're going to get bored as heck and you're not going to want to work on it. If you are someone who is easily overwhelmed by working on too many things at once though, having 5 goals or even 3 might feel like too many, and you don't necessarily give them each the attention that they deserve. So if you're new to it, probably try and start with fewer, but as you go through, give yourself the opportunity to kind of self-reflect and think about did this process work for me? What could I try or change to make more progress moving forward? Hopefully that helps. Let's see. You'll have to go through the replay even though we're technically here the whole time because I wasn't with my journal for the most part. Yeah, that can be a little bit tricky. Let's see. Oh, I love that. I'm loving that you're sending it to somebody else. Yes, I hope that this has not only been helpful for you guys, but anybody else who you want to send it on to, go for your life. I would love to bring them into the fold. I would love to help other people with their goals. Let's see. So, question. What are your favorite and or recommended black pens, textures, brush pens, dot pens, etc.? My favorite dot pens, because that one's nice and easy, are the only dot pens that I've used because they are the only ones that I have, and they are the Zig Clean Color dot markers. They are also, I'm pretty sure, the most expensive ones, but I have heard positive things about other ones, I'm pretty sure Ohuhu has dot markers. I haven't tried them myself though, so I can't really say with certainty how good they are, but the Zig ones work great. They are the most expensive though. Black pens, I know that not everybody has this one as their favorite, but I like the Papermate Inkjoy. But pretty much on any video that I have, you can find a list of the equipment that I've used, and oftentimes I use something because I like it. So any video you have where I've used a particular piece of equipment, check the description box because it will be listed in there. And if it's not, you have full permission to yell at me to say, Jess, what the heck? You yelled and lied to me. Oh my god. So, let's see. Thank you for doing this. So welcome. Alrighty, let's see. Do we have any other questions before I skedoodle? Because I still have 5 more videos to make for Vlogmas and tomorrow's my last day to work on them. Let's see. You got the matches palette for the December quarterly box. That's awesome. So I, obviously, still have a little bit of goal work to do. I still have to go through and brainstorm mine. But I hope that you guys are feeling very, kind of clear about what it is that you want to work on. And remember, make sure that you save all of that stuff that you just did, all of that work that you did in a space that is not going to get lost, okay? We do not want the work that we just did to be for nothing. We don't want it to go to waste, right? I'm very excited about 2024, and I really hope that you guys are too. I am wishing you all the best. Thank you so much for joining me on our last live stream for 2023. I will see you in the new year, and until next time, bye!